Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
There it is. Everybody who likes Michigan is saying go blue right now, man. It is.
Everybody.
It's a wild time to be alive. We had an outstanding time on Saturday.
Sure did.
Covering the game, seeing all the energy and all the people in Indy. Randomly bumped into one of my good friends that I grew up with. I mean, there's like a million people outside walking around in Indy, and we're just trying to get through the crowd and navigate. And I come face to face with a buddy that I grew up with. Didn't even know he was there. That was pretty crazy.
Dude, you, me, 50 women on a church retreat. Come on now. Come on. Indy was wild.
Let's get it out. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. We come back to the retreat. I think we talked about it a little bit with people.
Do people know? Do people know that? I know they know we were in the bunk bed area, but do they know the situation with our guests? Do they know what?
I don't know. I guess
what the scene was like. We talked about it with the people there. I don't know if we talked about it openly.
Yeah. So real quick. So we roll up on Saturday. We get in pretty early in the day, and there's like 100 cars at this place. It's out in the woods. It's kind of off the beaten path. It's this couple cabins, and we know we got the bunk bed situation. That was funny. That was kind of weird. And there's a bunch of cars there, and we're like, wow, there's a lot of people here. I wonder if this is for the game. I wonder what this is all about. Turns out there's like 50 women there on a church retreat, like a day retreat. So we're like, hey, look at this. And they're all kind of walking around the grounds doing what they do. Me and Chris were there for like 20 minutes. We leave. We go to the city. We get ready for the game. We come back. It's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning after covering the game and then walking around down on the field and doing some other shenanigans that we may or may not get into here on this podcast. And then we go back all the way out to our place where we're staying, and there's nobody there. Like, every single car is gone. The women are all gone. It was just a day retreat. They weren't spending the night. We're like, cool, whatever.
Terrifying.
Terrifying. It was quite scary.
Wait, I do want to say, the people that worked there that greeted us when we got there,
incredible.
The nicest people that you'll ever meet. But I will say, there is just something about pulling in down like a dark, long dirt driveway where there's like makeshift crosses guiding you into the woods. I've seen enough scary movies to know it usually doesn't end up well when you follow that path. But nevertheless, we only had one place to stay. So
yep. We probably should have turned around right there, but we didn't. We toughed it out. We go in. You know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We kind of get ready for bed. We're laying in bed. We're talking about the game. We're talking about what we're going to do the next day, time of getting up, how we got to clean up, all that stuff. It gets to be about 4 in the morning, and Chris and I are starting to doze off, starting to get a little sleepy, and we start hearing like pounding around in and around our cabin and voices and talking.
Now pause. We are in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. Indiana,
wilderness,
woods, compound, religious
river.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that's an element to it, and it's complete. There's nobody there. We didn't see anybody. Now we're hearing noises and voices right outside.
I mean, I'm walking around in my drawers.
You should see this guy. This dude's half naked. I mean, you know how it is when somebody pulls into the driveway and like a dad notices somebody's pulled in the driveway and he does that stance where he just sort of looks out the window and like waits for him to make a move. That was Brandon. Last night.
So I'm peering out the window, looking out the back window, looking all around. Turns out there was like another cabin area under ours. I didn't even know that we were on it was kind of like built into a hill. So there were people staying underneath us, and they were teenagers probably on some sort of church retreat doing something. All of a sudden I look outside the window and I see all these people come walking out like in backpacks, and they were just getting around and walking and leaving. So
children. It
was a little startling, a little unsettling, not the most comfortable night's sleep at that moment. But then after that, we slept like babies. We got out of there.
We did. When you see kids with backpacks on,
yeah,
okay, I feel better.
It was pretty harmless. We stopped at a B-Dubs on the way out. We put a little story up about Michigan in the freaking playoff. Number 2, they're playing Georgia. Number 3, down in Miami at the in the Orange Bowl at Hard Rock Stadium. I mean, dude, it's really a thing. We booked our trip. We've got hotels. We've got a hotel paid for. Real quick, I want to throw this out there. Anybody who, I know we've got at least one pilot in the room. Anybody else who might be a pilot, might have a hookup, might have a way to get us down to Miami, help your boys out, because the airlines have jacked the prices up and it is going to cost. I mean, Chris, I don't know what we're going to have to turn tricks or something, dude. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. I found some relatively cheap flights, but you're literally like, you have to bring your own chair and it's on the wing of a Spirit airline plane. So it's like, it's not good. And we're doing all right. We're doing fine, but you would prefer not to have to just like get completely, just raked over here to be able to go down and cover the game and bring content.
I mean, we're going to be there. It's a guarantee that we will be there. Driving, not happening. It's like 20 hours. No way. Not worth it. You'd have to stack up another hotel or 2 or 3 stays. Then you'd end up being in the price range you'd probably be in to fly down there anyway. No, I mean, it's going to happen. But the thing is that Chris actually has a vacation booked to Florida later on this or early next year. I've been to Florida multiple times, and the flights, they're like 3 times as much as they normally are. And that just irks me. I just don't like that. It's going to happen. We're going to pay it. I'm gonna suck it up, and we're gonna get it done. But
listen, Michigan man. Hey, listen. We are like self-sustaining businessmen here. We don't really take anything. The SI doesn't cover any of that type of stuff.
No.
Like they compensate pretty well for like the work that we do and the content that we put out. But in terms of like flights and things like that, it's we got to make that work. We'll get it worked out. I guarantee. Look, we are, like you said, we already know there's one pilot. If you're out there and you've got a private jet and you're not doing anything around the holidays, give us a call. Let us know.
Yeah, no, and I see Cody suggesting flying to Fort Lauderdale. Look, I've looked at Fort Lauderdale. I've looked at Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, even, which is way the hell up there. Atlanta. We're gonna fly into Atlanta and then drive 9 hours to Miami. Dude. We're going to get it done. Yes, I know, David. I have to just get off my wall and suck it up.
Tell him, David. Tell him.
This is the life of a business owner. I'm flying out there. We're it's going to happen. It's going to come together, and it's going to be a great, great time. And we're already
Brandon's about 1 click away from like panhandling out there in the streets of Ypsi. If you see Brandon sitting on the sidewalk with like a bucket asking for some change, you'll know why.
Here's the deal. This is what it's like. Chris and I had a lot of talks about this weekend. This is what it's like to be muddy. I don't know what it's like to have a little bit of coin yet. I'm getting there.
Very muddy.
I'm getting there. Eminem, he's worth like whatever, $500 million. He still like checks with his accountant to see if he can like afford a watch. He finds out that he can. He opts to buy the G-Shock for $100. You feel what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to switch up just when you find money. That's not what it's about. Me and Chris, mud. We come from the mud. Right? That's
I don't even know what are we doing, right? I'm not even sure where we're at. We are muddy. I know that. We are muddy. And you know what proved it? This weekend in Indy proved just how muddy we are, young man. I don't know if we should get into it on this pod. I think we need to discuss how we present it to the people before we start talking about our shenanigans. But
no, guys, we're not going to do it on me. It's not necessary. I can absolutely handle.
Listen,
it's just a matter of it being more expensive than I've ever seen.
You would prefer not to what's happening. It's just you know what's happening.
Everybody's gonna do it. We talked about this. I'm like, man, you can imagine if you just booked this 3 months ago, and Chris is like, why would you ever have thought to do that? Why would you ever have thought to book a trip to the college football playoff?
Even a just in case trip would never have even crossed.
I would be like, no, why would I do that? And so now everybody in the Michigan market is going to be doing the same thing. So it is what it is, man. We'll get it done. We'll be there with bells on. Can't wait. And so we got a little over 3 weeks to get it figured out, and that's exactly what we're going to do. A couple things of note first, Chris, before we get into revisiting some predictions and TFG. And
how the hell do we still have people listening? I'm looking down at the numbers. I'm like,
the numbers are going up, actually. They're going up. Yeah, they're going up. So anyway, first things first, couple breaking news things that happened today.
Yeah.
Washington has hired Courtney Morgan away from Michigan to be its director of player personnel. That's the same title that he held at Michigan for just about 7 months. He got hired in April, so he hasn't been there very long. And it was viewed as a pretty nice hire. I know when he first got hired, we came on and talked about it. I said, you know what? He's got a good reputation. I've heard pretty decent things about him, but honestly, He wasn't in football for 7 years. And I think you actually maybe put it in a way that really kind of resonated at the time. You're like, you don't see big time programs hiring dudes like that. You know, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, they're not hiring people to come run their recruiting department and do a bunch of stuff with their personnel when they haven't been in football in almost a decade. He was at Fresno State last year, but before that, it was 2013 since he last had a football job. So I don't know, man. Here's what I think. Here's what I think with this hire. First of all, Kalen DeBoer is the new head coach at Washington. He was the head coach at Fresno State last year, so they have a history. They worked together just last year. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm not trying to disparage Courtney Morgan. I haven't heard anything necessarily negative about him, but I don't think he's killed it. I really don't think he's killed it. Michigan's class is not that awesome for them being number 2 in the country and for them getting ready to play in the playoffs. It's not as good as you might think. And honestly, they had 2 quarterback targets way at the top of the board, Justin Martin and Nate Johnson, both California kids, both Courtney Morgan's supposed wheelhouse, and they missed on both of those guys. Justin Martin committed to UCLA, Nate Johnson committed to Utah. This was a while back. You know, the quarterback numbers weren't great for Cade McNamara pretty much all year. We talked about that a little bit. So I don't know. I guess, Chris, first things first, when you saw this, what were your initial thoughts? Like, oh man, going to Washington, like they're a mess. Why would he leave? And also, this is my last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you do your thing. I think if Michigan really wanted to keep him, they could have pretty easily. You up and pay a little bit. Things are rolling at U of M. Just stay. He's a U of M grad, right? He played at Michigan. I think if they really, really wanted him to stick around Ann Arbor, he absolutely could.
That's where my mind immediately went to it. When I heard what the destination was, I was like, I kind of feel like that might be a situation where Michigan was okay, and maybe it's a better fit for him. Maybe it's a better situation to go, back out west. I don't know. We talked what was it, on the post game podcast, or maybe even leading up to the Big Ten championship. We talked about some of the parts of this coaching staff that we felt we're going to stick around for years or for at least another year. And that they were important to that. They were crucial to the success that, Michigan's had this year. And you'd obviously want to see him come back. Courtney Morgan really didn't come up in that conversation. I don't know how critical he is to what Michigan's been doing. Obviously you would like to see, your whole group stay intact if you can, because you're doing big things with them, but it's not a huge loss. It might be a better move for him. And overall, I'm just not reading much into it. Best of luck to him, and Michigan's onward to the college football playoff.
Yeah, and Michigan does have a couple commitments from some California kids. Jaden Denegal, the quarterback, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle, Cavante Henry, and maybe most noteworthy, Zeke Berry, the DB who just committed last week. This is not exactly my wheelhouse like it once was, to be super plugged into the recruiting and find out the details of each one of those individual kids. I just kind of assume on the surface, if it's a Cali kid, that Morgan had something to do with it. I don't know how involved he really. My thought has always been with director of player personnel and recruiting coordinators is they just need to be really, really freaking organized and really, really plugged in. It's about what the coaches do out on the road and recruiting and the results on the field and the pitches when they come on campus. So to me, I saw somebody up it's Cody right there in the comments say that it's a really replaceable job. I think that it is. And that's not to disparage Courtney Morgan or any of the DPP people out there who do a phenomenal job or really good recruiting coordinators. I just think it's pretty easy to fill that job with a good guy. And then what you do in the coaching staffs and as coaches and on the field ultimately determine how good you're going to recruit. So, I was a little surprised at the timing. The first national signing day is in 9 days. Like that's not really ideal. But I don't think it's really going to make much of a difference in the big picture. Michigan's doing so well on the field. This coaching staff has an aura and a culture about them. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And again, that's not to disparage Courtney Morgan. And he's only been here 7 months. I mean, how much could he really have done in that short amount of time? Especially when more than half of that was when people didn't think Michigan was going to be very good, and they weren't really crushing it on the recruiting trail for a while there. So anyway, that's that. Any last thoughts on that, Chris?
No, I think you make a good point that Michigan is, when it comes to recruiting, Michigan's doing the thing that far and away matters most. They're playing meaningful football in late December, and in January they're in the college football playoff. And so, yeah, again, you would like to see the whole group stay intact. But I think even CJ made a good point for how successful Michigan has been. Maybe they're in a position where they can bring in somebody a little bit sharper at that position that may not have been interested in it back in the preseason when it didn't look like, there were a lot of question marks about what was going to happen with Michigan football and would Jim be able to return and what would the season look like. So they're in a good spot. I think it's very minimal impact, if anything. And that's not a slight against Courtney Morgan. It's it's more of a reflection of where the program is currently, that those things just aren't going to matter.
This isn't like losing your OC 6 days before a bowl game. I mean, this is an entry level position I mean, granted, it's Michigan. This is a big job when you're working in the offices and you're trying to get, your roster squared away. It's a big deal, but this is not a high paying job where it's a guy that absolutely can make or break your program. It's just not that kind of job. No matter who's in there. That's kind of a blanket statement. Couple things real quick that I see some people talking about. Travis asked, wasn't Chris Bryan in this position a few years ago? He is something else. He has something to do with high school connections and liaison when coaches and players come on visits on campus. I can't remember his exact title. It's something to do with high school relations and recruiting, but no, he wasn't the director of player personnel, and he's still around. He's still involved. And then I see a couple people mentioning Austin Cooper right here, mentioning Keon Sabb, a highly rated safety prospect who just decommitted from Clemson today on the heels of Brent Venables taking the Oklahoma job. So Michigan was involved with him. Very highly rated kid down at IMG Academy. We'll see what happens with that. They did just pick up Zeke Berry the other day. I feel like they're pretty similar players. So kind of interested to see what happens there.
As a side note, Chris Bryan is director of high school relations.
There you go. That's it. Director of high school relations. And he's still in that role. And from what I know, does a really good job. Really relatable dude. Everybody seems to like him a lot. So anyway, there you go. Yeah, Matt Dudek was the guy that was in that position before Courtney Morgan took over. He left for Mississippi State. They brought in Courtney Morgan. Now Morgan's on his way to Washington, where he's reunited with Kalen DeBoer. All right, and then last but not least, before we get into our scheduled segments, Hutch for Heisman, man. Hutch for Heisman. Aidan Hutchinson is officially a Heisman finalist. He makes up 25% of the group, along with C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, Bryce Young from Alabama, and Kenny Pickett, the quarterback from Pittsburgh.
Could have swore you were going to say Kenneth Walker there at the end. You said Kenny Pickett.
He did not make it. And I know Michigan State fans are real salty about that, but I mean, I don't know, man. I know he had his monstrous Heisman performance against Michigan, but like, he doesn't even have as many touchdowns as Hassan Haskins. I mean, he's got 1,600 yards. That's a really good season. He's a really good back. He's been awesome, but I don't know. I understand that like they were doing like K9 for Heisman since like week 1 and putting billboards up and trying to do all this stuff, and it didn't work. And now Hutch kind of comes in here at the end, and why?
Because he just
they yell Hutch for Heisman a few times, and he's there, but.
I know there's been a big campaign, but man, his play on the field, like it's the least surprise. Like when the news came through, I'm like, that's the least surprising news that you're going to see today, because he just so, in my mind, very clearly belongs there. And I go back to, I don't have it in front of me, but I read for you word for word how they define the Heisman Trophy and what that trophy is all about. And it's not just about, your play on the field. It's about, the things you do for your program. And when you dissect it all, what he's meant to this program and what he's done, I know he's probably not going to win it, because I know that's how things go. But I find a hard time believing that there would be anybody else there more deserving than him.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to put this up because D. Brown makes a good point. If you look back at the running backs who have won the Heisman, they have video game numbers. I mean, you're talking 2,000 plus yards, 22, 24, 28 touchdowns. I mean, like crazy numbers. And Walker's just not there. Now, the argument to that would be like Hutchinson's not even leading the country in sacks. Like, how is he there? But again,
it's hard to lead the country in sacks when you're held 90% of the plays,
that's part of it. But it is the bigger picture. It's the fact that he's on arguably one of the best teams in the country, that he is embodying all of those traits that you read off. And I don't know, man. I mean, it's obviously Michigan fans are ecstatic. I think it's awesome. Aidan Hutchinson's a kid I've known since he was in 10th grade. I know his parents pretty well. it's freaking sweet. It's great to see him there along with those 3 quarterbacks. Probably not going to win it. I think Bryce Young probably locked that up this past weekend with his 461-yard, 4-touchdown performance against Georgia, and they are the number 1 team, and it's Alabama, and it's basically been a quarterback award for the better part of 20 years. So that's what I think. I think it's cool that Aidan's going to be there. He'll get to go through all of that and experience all that, but I give him almost no shot at winning it.
But you know what the thing is, though? One of those things doesn't look like the other in that group that you read off. It's quarterback, Aidan Hutchinson, right?
Yeah, yep.
I don't know, man. I think the fact, look, I don't know how that thing's going to go, but he is definitely going to stand out in that crowd for more reasons than one. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes away with it. I just, in my heart of hearts, think he's the most deserving of it. And yes, I'm extremely biased, and I'm allowed to be.
Yeah. No, it's cool that he's there. It's another feather in the cap for Michigan in this season, for Mike McDonald, defense, for recruiting. I mean, all of that. I remember hearing so many Spartan slaps talking about, if Kenneth Walker wins a Heisman, imagine what that's going to do for recruiting, and imagine what that's going to do for Mel Tucker and the brand. And it's like, well, he's not going, and Aidan is. So there you go. Anyway, I also wanted to point this out because I think it's funny. A lot of people out there, especially you hear coaches kind of say it. I know several of them have in public forums that they don't give a rat's ass about Pro Football Focus. There's like a whole paragraph write-up in the official release from Michigan about how dominant Aidan Hutchinson has been per Pro Football Focus. So highest graded player in the country at Pro Football Focus, 3rd in the country for total pressures with 73. And had, I think, 15 pressures in the Ohio State game, which is the most ever recorded by PFF. So anyway, long list of reasons why Aidan Hutchinson deserves to be there. And we'll have a little bit more of an in-depth look on that as soon as we get off of this podcast. So there you go. All right, Chris, prediction time. You ready to go back and look at what we talked about on Friday before the game?
Let's take a look.
Well,
I think we had to have done all right.
Did okay. Went 3 for 5. Kind of. I'm cheating on one. We'll get to it. But our prediction, dude, we both thought Michigan would win by quite a bit. We had the exact same score. We talked about that. We both predicted that the game would be 38-16, which would have actually doubled up the spread. Michigan was favored by 11 or 12 by the time the game rolled around. We thought they'd win by 22. They won by 39, 42-3. I mean, it was as dominant as a game as I've ever seen. Iowa looked really bad, but I think a lot of that was because of Michigan's defense and because of what Mike McDonald did and how he adjusted. But I mean, we talked about it on Saturday. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on the final score and our prediction, but I still think back and be like, they really won by 39 in the Big Ten title game. It's unbelievable.
And the one thing we did talk about is how weird it is, the way that they do it. It doesn't look like the high-powered spread offense, the type that you were seeing, during the season or the latter part of the season with Ohio State, where they're constantly just attacking vertically down the field. Michigan, I don't know what it is about the way they play football, but you look up at the score and like maybe going into the half, it's a 1 or 2 point game, 13-14, whatever the score is. And then all of a sudden they're up 30. And time is running out and they put 45, 50 points up on the board. And it's like, how the hell did that happen? And so I don't know what it is. We have spent a lot of time talking about, our belief that Jim Harbaugh's brand of football can't win in today's college football. And I wouldn't say that this is entirely his brand. I want to give Josh Gaddis a lot of credit for the success that the offense is having, but they're proving that you can do it differently than the way it's been done lately in college football. And I think a lot of their opponents are struggling to shut it down at a time where Michigan seems to be, they don't have an answer for it.
I don't think I've said this on the pod yet, but I think I've said it to you a couple times, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I started thinking about this and it really makes it seem like Michigan's winning that way because of this. We all know that college football in general, but college football is a copycat organization and it's cyclical. And for a long time, it was all about the biggest, strongest offensive lineman you could find, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, find your big running back and go out and grind it out and win the game. 3 yards, cloud of dust, all that stuff. And then everything shifted to this mobile quarterback, RPO, option, speed and space, for lack of a better term, wide splits on the offensive line, smaller, more athletic offensive linemen. And Michigan struggled through a lot of that era. Rich Rodriguez tried to install it. It didn't really work out. Then it came back to Brady Hoke, where he was doing kind of like a hybrid in between. And then Jim Harbaugh came and kind of messed around with it a little bit at the end. And now they're getting a little bit back more to the power running game, a 2 running back system, grinding it out, leaning on other teams, getting better in the third and fourth quarter. It almost feels like Michigan kind of just stayed afloat, just kind of treaded water through the spread offense era. I don't think the spread offense era is over. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that so many teams now do the spread and only the spread that Michigan's approach is a little different and a little unorthodox, and it's a little harder to prepare for than it was 10 years ago even. It's like you always hear. It's like, damn, Michigan schedules a service academy, and it's like you got to play Army on 4 days preparation. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play this offense that I've never freaking seen before where you're getting cut block and you're going to get run against 65 times in a game. And it kind of feels like Michigan is that. It's like teams have been preparing against spread, tons of RPO, tons of, horizontal, tons of, motion, tons of quarterback run. And now Michigan has like a good blend of some of the other power stuff. And it is working. It is working at the highest level. That's why they beat up on Ohio State, and that's why they murdered Iowa on Saturday. Am I crazy for thinking that? Because, dude, that's certainly what it freaking looks like.
No, you're not crazy for thinking that. D Brown, if you're out there, yes, that's me. I appreciate it. No, you're not crazy for thinking that, Brandon. Look, we talked about it in the car on the way back that when you run a spread offense, your defense practices against the spread offense as well. And spread offense typically isn't known for being, the hard-nosed brand type of football that Jim Harbaugh likes to play. And so, yeah, it's prevalent throughout college football. And Michigan seems to be committed to this hard-nosed style where they're going to run it and they're going to, they're going to load in tight ends. They might even have a fullback out there. And you just sort of wonder if defenses that they're facing aren't used to that type of just physical play out of an offensive line, out of a running back group, and don't minimize the difference in the mentality. I think that's going a long way into why that brand of football is succeeding. It just seems like they're hungrier. They're playing at a higher level. The motor's running hotter. Everything about this team seems to be working, but I do think you're onto something there that their brand of football didn't look like it was going to work, once they got into Big Ten play. The first few games that we talked about it all the time. Like, you can't win this way. You've got to open it up. You've got to be explosive. And they've been explosive, but they've been explosive their own way. And it's working pretty damn well.
Yeah. Like you said, they don't technically have a fullback on the roster, but they put Eric All back there.
They put all, yeah.
Back there. They
Scooney back there sometimes. Yeah.
They get into the pistol. They get into the shotgun. I mean, they're running, your old school. It's not even my dad always refers to this play, but the student body right. But dude, they're pulling a guard and a tackle and a tight end, and they've got 3 lead blockers out in space on some of these, like AJ Henning's run against Ohio State, and we've seen Blake Corum get out on the edge that way, and Hassan Haskins before he's 10 yards down the field before he gets touched on some of those plays where they kick it out, and you've got 2 and 3 lead blockers out there. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not watching and studying all the teams across the country, but Michigan, I think, is doing something a little different, and I think that's why it's working so well. It's like I said, it's not what teams are used to running themselves, and it's not what they're used to playing against week in and week out. And I think that's why it's worked so well. And whatever they're doing, they need to keep doing it, because it might just freaking work against Georgia too. We're going to get in,
and it's clear that no matter who it is, they're not used to playing against guys like Aidan Hutchinson. I don't know how many times I've seen Aidan Hutchinson just do like a bull rush where he lowers his head and knocks an offensive line. I think he almost sacked the Iowa quarterback with an offensive lineman just by throwing him into him. So nobody's prepared for that.
Just put him on skates and put him right in the lap of Spencer.
Unreal. And these guys are like 6'7", like 300 plus pounds, and he's just moving them like they're nothing.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
He's been incredibly impressive all season. All right, there's my little breakdown of the score itself and how Michigan has looked over the last handful of weeks. I mean, really starting with that Maryland game. Maryland, Ohio State, Iowa has been as impressive of a 3-game stretch as in our lifetime, probably. I mean, when you talk about beating Ohio State the way they did and then beating Iowa the way they did in the championship, unbelievable. All right, here's our specific predictions. Number 1, I said Hassan Haskins will score 2 or more touchdowns. He did. At this point, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you called me smart on that one, right? You thought he might get 5 again.
It just seems like a given, and I think he could have gotten 5 on Saturday if he wanted to. It's just the Michigan rushing attack is working in such a way that it looks like they can do whatever they want to do on the ground, whether it's Hassan Haskins. Seeing Blake Corum get back in there was nice, but man, on the ground they can do whatever they want.
Yep. Number 2, I said that Cade McNamara will throw for 200 or more yards. He didn't. He came up a little short. He threw for 169. He also didn't throw a touchdown until late in was it the third quarter? Maybe even the fourth. Incredible grab by Eric All, one-handed in the corner of the end zone. 16-24 for $169, a touchdown and an interception. I thought he would throw it a little more, but it was, I mean, again, it was an efficient day. Like everything was working. His percentage was pretty high. He did throw the pick. It wasn't entirely his fault, but it little off the mark, got tipped, guy in the right place at the right time, but came up a little short of 200. I mean, obviously it didn't. I mean, they won by 40. Like, what are you going to do?
He's still guilty of the same thing he's been guilty of all season. He just does what's asked of him. That's it. And so that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's not always going to be glamorous. It's not always going to be huge, but the way he plays football, this Michigan team wins in large part because of it.
Yeah. All right. This is where I want to see if you're going to give me a mulligan or a free pass or a little bit of a fudger. Michigan will have 0 or 1 turnovers. They technically had 2 because JJ threw the Hail Mary before halftime. It was intercepted at the goal line. What are you doing here with
I'll give you the mulligan. I typically don't count those. I mean, it's the end of the half. You're forcing the issue. Sometimes even when we're talking about whether or not we're going to include that in our over-unders, it's like, well, are we going to include things like that? And so to me, that's, exclude that. Yeah, you got the 1 pick by Cade. But once again, they take care of the football. They don't turn it over. That was supposed to be Iowa's strength. I think the guest that you had on, that was one of the things he was hanging his hat on, was their ability to force turnovers. And even a team that does it really well couldn't do it against Michigan.
I said that's what was going to happen. I said they're going to need Michigan to turn it over like 5 times. And it's not going to happen. I mean, like I said, Michigan was the team with the turnover against Ohio State, and they still beat that team by 15, and it wasn't that close. So that was really the biggest reason why I didn't think Iowa had a shot in this one. I thought like they've been surviving all season off of defensive touchdowns, big time takeaways, and short fields, and I'm like, well, they're not going to get that. They're not going to get any of that against Michigan. So I think it's going to be bad for them, and it was way worse than I even thought. Cade the Snake, dude. Cade the Snake. The fourth one I had, I was half right. Aidan Hutchinson, David Ojabo will both record a sack. Ojabo actually did not. Aidan Hutchinson, the only sack of the game, just 1 sack on the Iowa quarterbacks.
Well, you can tell people are aware of who David Ojabo is now. They're aware of what he's capable of. And it's just things are going to get difficult this time of year. You're playing against better competition. People are scouting better. They're scheming better. But I still think he's going to add a couple more before the year's over. I mean, yes, they didn't get it, but that tandem, that duo on the edge has been just exquisite. I am sad that at most we have 2 more games left of watching David Ojabo and Aidan Hutchinson come off the edge. Those guys, it's just been a pleasure.
We've
the do-rag, just the drip everywhere coming from Ojabo.
You were saying, like, while we were watching a replay or a playback at halftime, or maybe it was during the game as we look up at the monitor or whatever, you're like, just look at the pressure they cause every time. It's
every time
the quarterback's like a step and a half into his drop, and they're like on his shoulders already.
You know what it looks like? It looks like when track stars are coming off the blocks. Like that's how quickly they get off when the ball snapped. They shoot out of there every single time. It's amazing.
That's why Aidan Hutchinson is putting 330 pounders on their ass, because he's putting meat hooks on their chest before they even get their back foot set in their drops, dude. I mean, it's unbelievable. Ojabo doesn't do much of the bull rush power stuff. He's much more, the athletic.
He's the finesse,
spin moves. But both of them have just been terrible for opposing quarterbacks, like wrecking everything they want to do. No 5-step drops, no play action. Dude, other teams literally can't call 5 and 7-step drops or play action against Michigan. You can't.
There's no time.
That cuts down a third of every offense's playbook right before the game even starts.
I mean, you have what, 3 seconds max before Hutchinson gets to. You just can't keep him away, right? Yeah,
if that, he's going to get there. It's the skill, it's the power, it's the speed, and it's the motor. I mean, they're coming, dude. They're coming. And last but not least. Just by a little bit, Michigan will cover the spread. Just by maybe almost 4 times. It was 11 or 12. They won by 39. incredible. I mean, not much else to say there.
No, we thought it would be convincing, and it was. But even though we thought it would be, and it was, I still find myself like blown away by it.
I mean, we're standing in that room doing our post game, and we just kind of keep looking back at the scoreboard, like, really?
The other thing we talked about in the car is it's like, okay, it's like if they beat Ohio State, then it's like I feel like I'm ready to like believe that they're legitimate. And it's like they beat Ohio State, and then you get worried about the Big Ten championship game, and then they beat the hell out of Iowa. And now you're looking at Georgia, and Georgia seems like, oh, Jesus Christ, we got to play Georgia. And it's like it's the same story over and over. They keep going up against these opponents, and you wonder if they're going to be able to pull it out. And not only do they pull it out, but they do it in dominant fashion. So I'm really excited to see what this one's going to look like. Because if they do against Georgia what they've done the last 2 weeks,
Georgia's really good. They've recruited as good as in the country. They're very talented, but Michigan can absolutely win that game. There's no doubt in my mind at this point. I know Georgia's a decent favorite. I think it's 9.5 or 9 or 7 maybe. I mean,
I know that Georgia's tougher than Iowa. I'm not comparing those two, but prior to, let me ask you this: before Michigan played Ohio State, how would you have compared Ohio State and Georgia at the time? Would you have said those are equal? If not, maybe even giving a slight advantage to the Buckeyes.
I recall myself picking Ohio State to win by 22 points.
Right. And the only reason that's different now is because Michigan beat the shit out of them. That's the only thing that's changed from that point to now. So give Michigan credit for that. There's a reason why Ohio State doesn't look very good.
See a bunch of people throwing 7.5 and there's the spread right now. So that's not small. That's not a toss-up game. That's most people, that's the spread thinking Georgia should win pretty comfortably for a playoff game. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we're sitting here, we're 25 days from the game. So we got a lot of time to think about this, dive into it and look at it. I don't have a pick right now. I mean, when we're weeks and weeks and weeks before Michigan and Ohio State playing, I was on the Buckeyes, and I was all week, and I still thought it. And then when the game played, I was freaking wrong. And right now, because of watching that and because of watching Saturday, I don't have a pick for this game. I don't care what the spread says. I know what I've been watching. And I don't have a pick for it right now. So that's a testament to where the team's at and how good they've looked. And listen, like Georgia's offense is not like awesome. Their defense has been billed as really good, and they've got Jordan Davis up front, who's a monster, and they've got other, they've got like 3 or 4 defensive tackles who would probably start for Michigan. And I think Chris Hitt and Ozzie Smith are pretty good.
Hasn't there been a lot of question, though, about Georgia's schedule? Like they played the tougher teams that they've played on their schedule has been a little bit closer. They've looked human against solid opponents.
They don't have a win anywhere near as good as Michigan's over Ohio State. They do not have that. But they're still really talented. And, they're up until Saturday, they were undefeated. I mean, so, you got to respect an opponent that can say that. But, yeah, I'm trying to pull up their schedule right now because I feel like I heard someone say that their best win this season was against Kentucky. I mean, if that's your bet, if that's what you're hanging your hat on, I mean, Auburn, they beat 34-10. They were ranked at the time. Kentucky was number 11. They're not the number 11 team in the country. So, miss me with that. They won 30-13. They beat up on Tennessee in Knoxville. And then they got beat by 17 against Alabama. So yeah, I mean they don't have any good wins. They really, really don't. SEC, everybody still thinks this is like. I swear to God, people think that the SEC every year is like LSU is with Ed Orgeron and Joe Brady and Joe Burrow, and it's Auburn when they had Cam Newton, and it's Florida when they had Tim Tebow. Like, bro, that was 10 years ago. That was 15 years ago. That was 3 years ago. There's not very many good teams in the SEC right now. Michigan would beat the brakes off of every team in the SEC except for Alabama and Georgia. I think Michigan would beat Tennessee by 30 points. I think Michigan would beat Auburn by 20 points. I think Michigan would beat LSU by 20 points. So this whole SEC dominant conference, best conference in the country thing, that's been
dead for a minute. I thought
that narrative is dead, but people still think that's the case. So, Georgia being undefeated and doing what they've done against this team, against this conference is not as special as it sounds or looks on paper. I'm not sure. Chris just dropped. I don't know if he was getting ready to mess with his computer there or what. That did not look like a planned exit. We'll see what he has to say. He's back, folks. Was that a plan?
I could hear myself. I figured I would just, I would just duck out, come back in. At this point, it's like such a common occurrence. We already know what the deal is.
Well, then
this fucking guy.
Then that's you.
I guess. I don't know. I'm going to write a letter to somebody.
This fucking guy.
TFG this week, man. I don't know. I got a positive one, so I don't know. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to get yours out of the way?
We can get mine out of the way. It's not a big deal. I just put up an article about this guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know where he lives. I'm assuming he's somewhere out in East Lansing. But this guy, for some odd reason, in the holiday spirit, decorating his house, decided to put his Christmas lights in the shape of the score that, Michigan State beating Michigan. It was some salty Spartan guy. And I thought to myself, like, man, like, when you talk about like the inferiority complex or the little brother syndrome, like, is there any better example of that than doing that to your home? So like, if you feel good about it, feel good about it. We're going to Miami. We'll be in Miami. Send me pictures of your Christmas lights while I'm in Miami.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is pretty fun. It's been a weird flex.
Odd flex.
Pretty much like, I mean, on the next week, right? Michigan State lost to Purdue the next week.
They did,
after they beat Michigan. So it's kind of been a weird thing where they're still talking junk about, like, dude, I mean, yeah, you every Michigan fan in the world would pay a large sum of money to go back and win that game. But now it's like, what are you bragging about? Like, okay, you won head to head, but you would trade places with Michigan a billion times out of a billion. So shut the hell up.
We know it. They know it.
Go eat a peach. Have fun playing Pitt, who probably is going to beat your ass because Kenny Pickett can throw it all over the yard. He's probably going to.
I'll tell you what. When it comes to Michigan State and Pitt, only one team's got a Heisman finalist right now.
He's only
burn, flame on.
Wow, top rope. Yeah, Pickett's probably going to throw for about $5 bills in that game, and yeah, it is what it is, man. But anyway, dude, mine.
This fucking guy.
It's Jim Harbaugh, dude. In the positive way.
Your boy, Jimmy H.
I've been so critical of him, and I've had so many people on Twitter pull up old tweets that I've had. And look, I stand by them still because we talked about this on the drive home. Like, hindsight is a beautiful thing, right? Dude, when they lost to Michigan State last year, and he was sitting in the press room looking like a dead body, and I tweeted out that it was over. It was over. And if it wasn't for COVID and it wasn't for the fact that they didn't get beat by Ohio State by about 60 last year, and the fact that he was still there in the first place because he's Jim Harbaugh and he once played for the Wolverines, dude, I stand by it. But what happened was he recognized all the things that I had pointed out up to that point, and he fixed them. And now they're 12-1, and now they're playing in the playoffs. And that's an incredible job by him and his staff and those players and those leaders and those seniors and everybody who's done a fantastic job this year. It's an incredible turnaround from where they were in 2020, not just on the field, not just record, but with their culture, with their staff, with their approach, with everything. It is a 180 in literally the biggest way in the history of the sport, because an unranked team has never done what Michigan just did this year. And that's make the playoff and be ready to compete for a national title. And so for that reason,
this fucking guy,
Jim Harbaugh is the TFG in the most positive way imaginable. But I don't take back any of the things I said, because when I said them, they were right and they were on point. And that's how it works.
I think here's how I put it to you, and I might not have put it this way, but I can use a real life example of this. We have been going through a home renovation here for months, and my wife has been wanting to do new flooring for months. Well, we're finally starting to do the new flooring. I can't just walk up to my wife now, get in her face and be like, "Now what? We're doing the floors." Like, I still dragged my feet getting it done. It still took me a long time to get done. Like, now I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and we're happy and everything's working, but I still took too much time to get it done. I know that, she knows that. So yes, the criticism was warranted. The job wasn't being done. But now he's done the job. I didn't think he should have been given as much time as he was. I don't think any other coach would have been given that much time had they not been named Jim Harbaugh. We can have that argument. I'd be happy to have it. But at the end of the day, he was given that much time, and now he's done it, and the rest of it doesn't matter. Whether you wanted him to stay, whether you wanted him to go, none of that conversation matters anymore, because he finally did what he was brought here to do, and now it's onward.
Yeah, and It's what I've always stayed true to. I just call it like I see it. And last year was awful, and I would have fired him. If I was Ward Manuel, I would have fired Jim Harbaugh. And now where they're at, you'd say, well, then you're an idiot.
Right.
But you wouldn't have been at that time. That's what you just have to, because nobody thought this was going to happen. So you can't say like, I knew it was going to take 7 years to get there. No, you didn't. And we talked about this before. We talked about this before. And here's a great point. Scott Whitaker. If Jim Harbaugh was fired, where would Michigan be right now? Who knows?
Oh, no.
There's no way to know the answer to that. There's no way to know the answer to that.
What if he had won a Big Ten title in year 2? Where would the program be? Probably further along, maybe. I don't know.
You can just go back and do that as much as you want.
Yeah.
I mean, if they did get rid of him and they brought somebody in that was a really good coach and had a good culture instilled from day one, maybe they do the same thing. How do you know that it wouldn't have worked out that way? You can't say that. You can't even say that it wouldn't have been this good. There's no way to know that.
Yeah.
It would have been the same roster, the same talent, same leaders, same seniors.
It looks to me like the biggest difference was staffing,
So I don't know, man. You just can't play that game. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just funny. Like, people keep quote tweeting stuff that I tweeted a year and a half ago, and I'm like, dude, you're not catching me. I said what I said, and I still stand by it. It just
you can't. Well, here's the thing: you can't use an article from a year ago that was written based on facts from a year ago and use facts from today to dispute it. It doesn't work that way. Well, honestly, it does for some people. Bottom line, he got it done. He's doing the damn job, and everybody's happy about it. And there's no need to there's this need for people to come at each other and to stand on a soapbox and claim, how loyal they've been over the. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. The bottom line is Jim Harbaugh had a job to do, and everybody expected him to do a certain job. And it took him 7 years to do it. And it's longer than everybody wanted it to take, but damn it, he got it done. Give him credit. He did what he was brought here to do. And now it's onward.
Yep. And now it's onward. That's it. And now the bar is set higher, and now you're expected to do it. I mean, I don't know. It's not.
Dude, the whole time we were pounding the table saying they should be in the college football playoff. The same people that are saying told you so were the same people telling us they could never get there because of academics, that we had to be okay with 8 and 9 win seasons because that's what Michigan's always been. And now, because they've reached this level of success, these same fans are somehow taking credit for it. It's just a weird dynamic that happens.
DK, D2, DK, whatever, D2, K2. It's not. It has nothing to do with loyalty.
Your loyalty paid off to them winning a title. That's just ridiculous.
It had nothing to do with loyalty, because in the world of college football, you have to win. You have to.
You know what?
You have to win. You have to win at the highest level. It's not loyalty, man. That's not what it is, and that's what I'm saying. Like maybe Jim Harbaugh did get some loyalty because he wore the winged helmet, and I think that's off. I mean, trust me, when Jim Hackett brought Jim Harbaugh to Michigan, the blueprint and the plan was not to get it done in year 7. So that's not loyalty, in my opinion. It's just not. That's not what that is. I mean, like I said, it sucks that you have to have a defense type of talk like this, because it's amazing that it happened. Like I said, I'm not going to back off of what I said a year ago, when what I was saying then was, look, man, Ward Manuel cut the dude's pay in half. Okay, they cut his pay in half.
I said this when we left. I said this, I didn't even know that was an option when we were talking about it's time to move on from Jim Harbaugh. I've never seen a situation where somebody came back after having half of their pay cut. It was an odd situation.
You said you used to be in sales, Chris. What was that thing you said in the car when we were coming back?
Perfect example. Before I got into this industry with Brandon, I was doing sales. And when I was hired to do a sales job, like anybody out there, if you're in the comments, if you've been in sales, you know how sales works. You try to make as many sales as you can, but there's always 1 or 2 or 3 big clients out there where those pay the bills. You really got to keep those clients happy. And for Jim Harbaugh, that's Michigan State, Ohio State, the Penn States. Those are the big time clients. That's why he was brought. Right. That's why he was brought to Michigan. It doesn't matter that he was making a bunch of little sales. He wasn't closing on the big deals. And I've been in sales long enough to where if you're not closing on the big deals, you don't get to stay there very long. And that's what this is. This is a business. And Jim Harbaugh was brought to get the big sales. And damn it, it took him 7 years it took him 7 years. We were worried about him. We weren't sure that he could do it, but he did it. He proved he could do it. And here's the thing. Now that he's done it, you don't get like another 7 years before you get to do it again. This is now the catch 22 is you've proven it can be done. This is the standard. Now go out and do it again. And that's how you go from mid-level program to now you're a legitimate contender year after year. You find a way to reload. This is great. This is enjoyable. I'm going to remember this year for the rest of my life, but this program needs to continue this trajectory of success.
Throw this comment up real quick from Dependent Fanatic. The academics thing was proven wrong now. You know why? Because it's not a thing.
Never existed.
Academics thing was never a thing. We've been saying that for a long time, too. It's not a thing. Michigan wants a kid. They get him in. They get him in. I got news for you. That's really how it goes. And I know that for a fact because I know people who know. I know people who see and make grades at Michigan, okay? It's not a thing. And even if it is, who cares? They did it. They did it with that monstrous hurdle in place. They did it. So you can't use that as an excuse anymore. So I don't know. I always hated the academic argument. And another good point here. That was never in question. Of course, Jim Harbaugh wanted to work at Michigan more than anybody, more than me, more than Chris, more than all those fans who booed them over the last handful of years, more than the players. That's never been a question. I have never questioned his desire or his want to be good or successful. I don't know if anybody out there made that argument. If they did, that's really a bad take because clearly he wants it to work as bad as anybody on the planet. And now it has. He's checked off a lot of big boxes this year, and damn it, they're permanently checked. Find a Sharpie, the biggest, fattest ass Sharpie you can find, and cross that off, and it's staying crossed off. And that's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. It is. I hope it keeps moving. That's the thing now. You just want more of it. Like it's almost a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's almost a blessing because now anything less than that is going to be like, well, you just did it.
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing in any other job. When you prove you can do something, the people who employ you expect you to do it more. That's just how the world works. So, these guys are getting paid a lot of money to do this stuff. I think it's okay to hold them accountable and to expect it be done.
Yep. No doubt about it. All right.
I don't want that to sound negative, man. Congrats to the guy. I mean, dude got it done. Tip your cap to Jim Harbaugh. He did everything he was brought here to do. There's a couple things left. Well,
I think no, you know what? I think he's done. I'm trying to think.
Was a national championship really ever part of the criteria?
I would say no. I would say you do those other things and you put yourself in a position like, dude, to hire someone and say you got to win a title, that's not realistic. Right. To hire a guy and say you got to be better than Michigan State almost all the time, you got to be at least pretty equal with Ohio State, and you got to make it to Indy sometime. That's realistic. Making it to the playoff and playing in a title every year, that's not a realistic expectation. Like he's done 2 of the 3 things now. Again, only one time in 7 years. Like, let's not make it sound like that. That's why I'm still not quite at the slate clean thing. But in this business, like, what have you done for me lately? He's done freaking amazing lately. So let's ride that. But now you got to come back and you got to keep doing it. He's still below 500 against Michigan State. That's not good. But what have you done for me lately? You beat the piss out of Ohio State. You murdered Iowa. I don't even know if Kirk Ferentz is alive. Has anybody seen his body anywhere?
Where is he?
Jesus. And now they're in the playoff, and they're going to be maybe playing for a national championship. He's done plenty lately. That's the bottom line right now. All right. Burning questions, Chris. You want me to go?
I'll kick it off.
Kick it off, bro.
All right. I asked you this question weeks ago, back in October, after Michigan lost that game, that painful, brutal game to Michigan State. I asked you, what does the Big Ten coaching hierarchy look like? And you gave me an answer then. I'm going to ask you that question now. What does the Big Ten coaching hierarchy look like as of today? Give me your top 5. Start it. Well, you're going to have to start at the top and work your way. It would be too hard to start at number 5, I would think.
So it's really kind of like what I just said. What have you done for me lately? And oh man, you're really gonna make me say it, aren't
He's
you?
gonna say it. And then I'm gonna clip it and I'm gonna put it on social media and I'm gonna play it everywhere.
Harbaugh's won. Jim Harbaugh's won.
Number one in the Big
He's
Ten.
number one.
Wow.
He's number one because how can you put him anywhere else right now? Because of what I've seen over the last 3 weeks is they're the best team in the Big Ten, and it's really not close right now.
Look, sure as hell looks like it.
I don't know what that's going to look like next year. I don't know what that's going to look like in Columbus next year. But right now, that's an obvious no-brainer statement. Jim Harbaugh is number one. He's number one. And I think Ryan Day is still number two. I think Ryan Day is going to continue to be at or near the top because he's got a ton of talent and because, I mean, dude, the guy's 24-1 in the Big Ten, like 23-1 in the Big Ten. Like he's doing all right.
He's
right?
doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
But he sure as hell, he didn't hit a triple. We know that.
He didn't hit a triple.
He may be on third, but he did not hit a triple.
It's true. It's true. Not a lot of coaches walk into situations like that. That's true. So I'd go Harbaugh 1, Day 2. I think I would say Paul Chryst 3. Like if I'm hiring a coach to run my Big Ten team, that's probably who I would take 3
over Big Tuck coming chopping the woodshed, the cigar.
And then I would put Tuck at 4, and Kirk Ferentz at 5.
Wow, the disrespect. Yeah, look, I'm not going to go through my top 5. I just wanted to see if you would say it, and I agree with you. What have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. There's not a chance that I could pick a coach over Jim Harbaugh right now. If we were looking at how things stand today, he's got to be the top coach in the Big Ten. And, you wonder what that's going to mean for the offseason, especially when people around him are getting paid. But dude's done a hell of a job. And as of now, yeah, he takes that top spot. And just like everything else we seem to talk about this time of year, it's crazy to say that. It's crazy to hear that come from your mouth.
It is
insane.
I mean, but like I said, I'll just call it like, yeah, I don't like James Franklin, and I'm probably lower on him than a lot of people are.
What about Braum? Does Braum not get enough credit for? It seems like he's good against. He can play up to like one team pretty well.
Because you know why though? Because in college, a huge, massive part of being good at your job and having success is recruiting, and I mean, who's Jeff Braum bringing there?
I mean, he wants to go to Purdue.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's certainly a valid argument. Like, I mean, I don't know. You could put the best recruiter in the country at Purdue, and it might not look that much different. I don't know.
Not when the Wolverines are up the road.
Yeah, I think that's a tough sell to put Jeff Braum ahead of those 5 that I said. He's in the next wave, but I wouldn't put him ahead of the 5 that I said. I don't know. It's debatable. I might get into a discussion where I take a Jeff Braum over Kirk Ferentz, but I don't know, man.
But the bottom line is we know who's sitting up top in the throne.
Yeah. Longevity and success and repeated performances is big to me. And that's why Mel Tucker's down the list a little bit. I mean, he's really good this year, but that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
I disagree.
Right.
I go with Tucker at 3. That's the only disagreement I have with you.
And Chris at 4. You just flip those
at 4,
2?
yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't want to run through a wall for Paul Chryst. I got a feeling Mel Tucker could get me hype in the locker room.
I feel you. I can't argue that point that much, but I also think they're excuse me, they're similar in a way that they don't get a ton of high flying recruits, and they win games, man. They do well year in and year out. Paul Chryst has been good. They weren't quite as good this year, but anyway, there you go. My first question to you, and this is not a super deep dive, I don't think, but we talked about it and we had slightly differing opinions. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your disappointment level that Michigan was not number 1 in the playoff? 1 to 10.
My disappointment level?
How'd that rub you?
Rubbed me zero. Rubbed me zero. I would have liked to. We sat in the bar, and I made the case to you multiple times why I thought Michigan would be number 1, and I thought that was going to happen, but it didn't happen. And to be honest, I don't give a shit because we're in the college football playoff, and this is what I just want Michigan to be a part of. This is, as a fan, I'm speaking strictly as a fan. This is what I've been waiting. Like I've always wanted to see them make that tunnel walk on TV and what that looks like, and to be a part of the whole thing. And so I feel like just from a personal standpoint, I'm so excited to be still playing meaningful football at this point, that it didn't affect me at all, man. We're in, and that's all that matters. And at some point, Michigan's going to have to face a big boy at some point. Sure, would I have liked to get Cincy out the gate and have a better chance of getting to the Natty? Yeah, but they're going to have to face somebody like that sooner or later, and I like that we're getting it right out of the gate, and we'll see what it means long term.
I mean, it's a 0 for me too. I didn't think you'd be irate about it, but I know you made a little stronger argument towards putting it Michigan at number 1. So I thought you'd be a little miffed, but I'm with you. I don't really care. And you're going to have to beat a good team, at least one at some point, if you want to win a national title. But dude, if you want to talk about giving Jim Harbaugh some props and crossing some freaking things off a list, can you imagine a season where they beat Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and win a freaking title? Like, you don't get a better 3 wins on any schedule any year than that. And that's what they're going to have to do. Now, that's a tall task. There's no doubt about it. That is a hard ask for any team in the country, but that's what they'll have to do, seemingly. I mean, everybody, I think it's a foregone conclusion that Alabama's going to beat up on Cincinnati, but we'll see. So that's what it would take. But yeah, I'm not disappointed about it, and that's what I thought would happen. I thought Alabama would be 1. I don't think they want to do a rematch with Alabama and Georgia right now, and we saw a precedent from it. When Michigan was 5 and Ohio State was 2, Michigan moved up to 5. Alabama was 3, Georgia was 1, Alabama moved up to 1. I think I thought that's what was going to happen. So yeah, I wasn't disappointed at all.
All right, next question, Brandon. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to think about it differently now that Michigan's actually won a Big Ten title. It certainly looks like, I mean, based on what he's done, Cade McNamara is that guy. He is that dude. Delivered a Big Ten title to Michigan. It hasn't happened since 2004. If he does want to come back to Michigan, it's clear he's not the flashiest on the roster. It's clear he's probably not the most talented, but he this year was the best guy for that position. If he comes back, do you see a scenario where J.J. McCarthy would be okay playing the same type of role next year that he's played this year?
No. I think he's too good, and I think he knows he's too good, and it's not a cocky thing, but that kid's wired to play. That kid is not wired to stand on the sidelines and play 6 or 8 snaps, and he's a true freshman right now, and it was working, and so you do what you do, and from all accounts, it took him a little while to figure things out. He wasn't as good early on, wasn't as sharp, was making some mistakes, and we saw a little tiny bit of it throughout the season, not much, but golly, man, I cannot imagine another full season of him doing what he's doing. I mean, if Cade comes out of the gate next year and he's still the starter, maybe JJ gets, instead of 2 or 3 plays here and there, it's 2 or 3 series here or there. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do, how you can say, Cade, thanks, but we're going in another direction after what he's done this year. He's, I think he's got like 15 touchdown passes is all for the whole season.
Yeah.
He did not light the world on fire statistically, but he's a leader. The guys believe in him. They love him. He takes care of the ball, and they're 12-1. How do you go away from that? It is a wild scenario. It's a crazy battle that there's going to be.
Yeah. So the way I asked the question is, would JJ, would he be okay playing? Do you think he would be okay playing the same role? Right. You say no. I say yes. I don't think he would prefer it. I don't think that would be the ideal situation, but I have been so impressed with the way this kid's maturity, his freshman year, the impact he's had on this team. I listened to Blake Corum. Blake Corum ripped off like a 68-yard run in the first quarter and then proceeded to get like 3 more carries the rest of the game. I think something like that. He sat up in the post-game press conference, grinning from ear to ear, saying, basically, I don't give a shit who gets the ball, who gets the credit. I just want to win. I think that is woven into the fabric of this team. I think they've all bought into that concept that whether it's me, whether it's the next guy, whoever it is, this winning thing feels pretty damn good. And I think J.J. McCarthy is a big part of that. I think he would prefer to play, obviously, as all competitors do. But if he's asked to play the same exact role next year, I think he would do it. I don't think Michigan is in danger of losing him.
We're going to see. We are certainly going to see. And I think I think just going from the comments, people are going to be disappointed if JJ's not the starter next year, which is crazy. And I can't say I don't disagree. I mean, we've talked, God, how many times about, dude, can you imagine if JJ was just in all year and was really oiled up and ready to run this offense, how exciting and how dynamic it could be. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. If I did, I'd go JJ. I would. I mean, where things are right now, I mean, you got to go through spring ball. You got to go through fall camp. You got to see the new team, the new roster, the new approaches. But I've seen enough. Like when Cade McNamara missed that throw in the Big Ten title game where Mike Sainristil was running free, I'm like, dude, that's a touchdown if JJ's in, because he throws it off his left foot, falling away, zips it down there when McNamara had to get kind of settled and get a little bit more out there and then step into it. And by then the safety had time to catch up to it. I mean, like, talent's talent, man. You can see it, you know?
You know what? That is a great question by John Patrick. And I think, yes, the answer is yes. I think if they go into the offseason, they battle it out and JJ comes out on top, I could honestly see a scenario where Cade stays with the team as opposed to transferring out and trying to, you know, to get a spot somewhere. I don't know. I wouldn't have said that a year ago. I get it. These guys want to play. They've got bigger goals, but something just feels different, special about this team. And I wouldn't be surprised. Put it that way.
All right. We could spend a really long time on this. We're already over an hour, so maybe we shouldn't do that. We started talking about it a little bit, and good God, man, we've got 25 days to talk about it. But I'm going to ask you straight out. Can Michigan beat Georgia?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
100%. They can beat any team in the country. The fact that I'm saying, and I've said this to you before, the fact that I'm saying that and it's realistic, it's reality, is crazy. But yes, they can beat any team in the country, including Georgia.
I agree 100%. Michigan has proven to me now that they can beat anybody they step onto the field with. They take care of the ball. They run the ball. They play defense. They hit plays when they're there. They're just creative enough. They're just explosive enough. One of the most balanced teams I can ever remember. They can come at you in so many different ways. They don't really have like a guy. They just have a bunch of guys.
They adjust, like it's like the raptor testing the fence, right? Like if it doesn't work here, they go to another place and they just keep doing it until it works. So, man, from a team that couldn't seem to make adjustments like the previous couple of years, they seem to adjust really, really well these days. So that leads into the next question I was going to ask you. Obviously, we know Courtney Morgan on his way out. Who's still remaining on the staff? You know, when you have a successful team, people are going to take interest in your staff. Who on the staff would you say is the number one most important assistant coach? Jim Harbaugh cannot afford to lose this guy during the offseason. Who is that?
Mike Macdonald. He has impressed me in a way that I just did not see coming. I didn't have doubts about him. I wouldn't call them doubts, but I certainly had questions. Talking about a young guy who had never coached in college before, who had never called a defense before. How could you not have questions about him? It's not like we're in the the meeting rooms with him. We're not seeing him break down film. We're not understanding his scheme. We didn't even know if it was going to be a true 3-4 or a 4-3, or how are you going to use this guy, or where's the Viper? Why is this guy leaving suddenly? Like, and Evan, I'm going to comment on your point. He doesn't make halftime adjustments. He makes freaking next series adjustments all the time. All game last week on Saturday, not all game, very early on, Josh Ross was getting picked on over the middle, trying to defend slot receivers, trying to stick with tight ends up the seam, trying to run with tight ends on crossing routes. And the next series out, Josh Ross was on the sideline, Mike Barrett was in the game, and Mike Macdonald was mixing in a trio of safeties in Rod Moore, R.J. Moten, and Dax Hill, and that went away. And then later on, when Michigan got beat a couple of times on that naked bootleg, the next time Jalen Harrell was having a McRib sandwich and putting Tetris on his ass.
Brutal.
And they did that 2 or 3 times. They never called the bootleg play again. He takes plays away that work within a series. And that is something Don Brown couldn't have done on his best day when he was there. And that's crazy because Don Brown was one of the best D coordinators in the country for a couple of years. And this young dude, Mike Macdonald, has come in and changed that defense and the way that they approach things. And that's why they're beating teams the way they're beating teams. It's been unbelievable.
I agree. It's 100% Mike Mc. I mean, look at what happened against Ohio State in 2018 and 2019. Historic back-to-back loss. 118 points were given up.
Yeah.
Now we're in
30-point
November.
losses basically both years.
Right. We're in November now, and teams are having a problem scoring on this Michigan defense. And Mike McDonald gets a lot of credit for that. And when you go back to earlier in the season, we had on Chris Hinton, we had on Mozzie Smith. We talked to them about what was it about Mike McDonald's scheme that seemed to be resignating with the players? And they flat out said, they allow us to just do what we do. We just get to play. We get to play to our strengths. We get to do what we do. And you can see that once these guys are able to play to their strengths, they're really, really damn good. And Mike McDonald is a really big reason behind that. And so absolutely, I know it's tempting to want to say Mike Hart because I think he's had a huge impact on that running back room. Sharon Moore and what he's doing with the offensive line, helping out with the offensive coordinating stuff. But man, Mike McDonald, we didn't know what we were going to get with him. And he has been perfect.
He's been lights out. He's been damn near perfect except for the Michigan State game. And that's it. I mean, that's why they're 12-1. I've been thoroughly impressed by Mike McDonald and his attention to detail, his intelligence, his ability to recognize, diagnose, and fix things on the fly. That's what it does. He doesn't have to wait till halftime. He gets in there and fixes it right now. And the plays that worked last series, suddenly they don't work anymore. And it's been really noticeable. I've pointed it out multiple times in the year. Earlier in the year, he was using Daxton Hill and RJ Moulton on safety blitzes, and they were getting stopped, and they were leaving open spaces behind him. So he'd go away from it. Later on in the game, Michigan with a little lead, obvious passing situation. Boom, there's Daxton Hill on a safety blitz again. He's done stuff all season like that, where if you're paying attention, you can really recognize the changes he's making on the fly, and they work. They work like every time. Like he knows. I don't know, man. He's again, we're not in the film study. I don't get a full breakdown of what Iowa looks like on offense, but he knew when they were calling that bootleg play.
You think
once it worked,
John Harbaugh?
He knew.
You think John Harbaugh is going to get a big Christmas present from his brother this year?
He
should, because it's going to be big. You got to pay back Mike McDonald. That's a pretty big gift from John. I don't know how you repay that type of gift.
Yeah, unbelievable job on Mike McDonald. So there you go. All right, Chris, I need you to do me a favor, dude. I spend a lot of time with you, talking to you. We're riding in the car. I know how you think. I need you to stop it. Stop it.
Oh.
If you had a Heisman vote, who are you voting for? Don't you, Chris? Be true to yourself here, Chris. Who are you voting for?
Hold on 1 second. You want me to be true to myself? I'm going to be true to myself. Hold on. Just give me 1 second here. And I quote, the Heisman Memorial Trophy is awarded annually to the most outstanding player in college football. Winners epitomize great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work.
Yeah.
Look, man, I'm trying to take off the maize and blue glass, but perseverance, hard work, diligence, it's Aidan Hutchinson. The dude eats on every play. He affects every single play. It doesn't show up in the stat column because of the nature of his position, but he is the most dominant player in college football, and it's not even close. Yeah. Watch every play. Watch the guy trying to stop Aidan Hutchinson every single play, and look at what his afternoon or evening looks like. It's a shit show. He makes all Americans look like baby boys out there. They can't handle him.
I love Cody's comment. Chris would vote for JJ.
Give it to JJ. And base it entirely on that throw from Western. That throw against Western Michigan.
If that's truly what it's based on,
I'm reading it.
You can't vote for somebody else, dude.
Perseverance, hard work, and diligence. Come on, man.
I'd want to.
Who's persevered more than 8? The injury in 2020?
Yeah.
He had to come back. He had to rehab. Man.
I'd want to go back and watch Bryce Young a little bit more closely because his Heisman moment in that game against a Georgia defense that was billed to be impenetrable. He had 461 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's a day. But dude, I don't know how you can Aidan Hutchinson affects each play as much as a quarterback does on offense. And that's insane. That's insane.
Yes.
So I would probably vote Aidan as well. And now, again, I've watched every play he's played this year. I haven't done that with any of the other guys, not even close. But
Sure.
if those are the parameters, and he's affecting plays as much as he is, give my vote to 97.
Great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work. It's Aidan Hutchinson.
There you go. Hard to argue it.
That's it. That's my last question. Am I missing one?
What? I have 2 left.
You've got 2 burning questions left. Well, you go next, right?
I sure do. Yeah, I do. I do go. No,
Okay.
I just asked who you would vote for the Heisman.
All right. Well, I guess you're going to have to ask me another question here while I think of a question.
Chris really struggled to get to 5. He got to 3 and fell asleep today. 5. You have 5 fingers, dude.
Wait, what happened
on each finger, and then ask me those. All right, I got another one. Are you ready for another one right now?
I'm ready.
Actually, this is I should have asked this one after your last one. I forgot I had this on here. It's probably pretty obvious based on the way we both our knees might be bruised at this point. But can you give a letter grade for Mike Macdonald this year? A letter grade.
Can I do an A++? Can I give him a second plus? As good as it can possibly be. Again, the Michigan State game sucked. But the good thing about the Michigan State game was it looks like he learned from it and he adjusted and made the adjustments at a time when it matters most. And so, I expected them to slip up. They slipped up in a game that I didn't think they would do it. But at the end of the day, they have played lights out here down the stretch. A++ effort from Mike Macdonald for sure.
I'll go A, but only because of that Michigan State game. And I honestly don't think it was a lot of him like doing bad calls or getting guys in the wrong spot. But you got to be a little bit better against tempo. You got to be a little bit better with your substitutions. And good God, man, you can't let a guy score 5 touchdowns. You just can't.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's really my only knock on him all year. There's been a flash here and a flash there where a tight end gets loose up the seam, and that's it though. I mean, dude, he's been so good, and as someone who just consumes a lot of football, there have been multiple occasions in every game where I'm like, that's a direct adjustment that Mike Macdonald just freaking made on the sideline just now. It's different just now than it was 5 plays ago, and that when you can really notice that. That's big, and that's why they've been so good. And dude, I just hope somebody doesn't from the NFL doesn't watch his tape as closely as I have, because they'll be calling him, they'll be giving him a phone call. That's my biggest worry with Mike Macdonald, is because his whole life of coaching has been spent in the NFL, and now he's putting this unit out there for his first time ever calling plays. Is someone's gonna be like, let's get that dude up here where he can spend, we can pay him more, and he's working with pros, and we can put even more time into getting his defense on the field. That's my biggest concern with him.
All right, I got a question because I think it's obviously been such a crucial part to Michigan's success, but we don't, at least on this show, we don't spend a lot of time talking about it. Leading up to the season, we talked about all the question marks that Michigan had on the roster, particularly on the offensive line. How much further along is that unit at this point than where I guess you expected them to be at this point in the year heading into the season? It seems like they're meshing pretty well. They're keeping Cade McNamara clean. I don't remember. I mean, I feel like they're overperforming and they don't get enough credit.
That's probably fair. At this point of the season, 13 games under their belt, I thought they'd be pretty good because there's some talent in there. They're more athletic than they have been. They're big too. You're not talking about Vistardis is the smallest dude, and he's not small. I mean, Stuber's 6'7", 340. I mean, Filiaga, when he plays, he's 6'6", 350. Hayes is 6'7", 315. I mean, these are big dudes, man, and they can all really. Trevor Keegan's a big guy, but he can really run. Zinner, apparently he's the best player on the team. We heard that earlier this year. He's a stud.
Give him the damn ball
as a sophomore. I mean, so I'm not surprised that they're there now. I am surprised how good they were from the jump. That's what I would say, because I do trust Sharon Moore. I think he's an incredibly intelligent guy, and I think he's really good at what he does. I think you could take Sharon Moore and put him at any position, and they'd be good. I'm that high on him as a smart dude, and as how he prepares, and his personality, and how he can get his guys to buy in. So I'm not surprised that they're really, really good now. But I was surprised how good they were out of the gate when that was a brand new job for him and a lot of new guys playing. And like I thought Ed Warner was good, so I just expected there to be a drop off, and there wasn't at all. If anything, they were better almost immediately than they were maybe all of last year, and that's really saying something.
Yeah, it's been a crazy surprise and I think it all goes back to how well they've protected Cade. Like they've kept him clean. I don't know how many times Cade's been sacked this year.
6 or 7.
But it hasn't been much. They've kept him clean. And the way that Cade plays football, that's been crucial. He's been able to go back there, dissect the coverage, and operate. And so, yeah, they, as is often the case, the dirty hog mollies up front don't usually get a lot of the spotlight. But man, this offensive line has been extremely impressive. I know Cade thanks him every chance he gets. Hassan Haskins shouts those guys out every time, he can. And when you see these guys putting up those big numbers, that unit is the primary reason why. So shout out to them, man. Hell of a year for that group.
Hell of a
and
year
for Sharon Moore.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he's a guy. It would be interesting to know how involved he was in the play calling duties, because I do think he's a rising star. I do think he's very smart. I do think he's got a way about him in a sense that I think he would crush an interview. So, I mean, I can't see him leaving to be an O-line coach somewhere else, because why? Why would you have a lateral move when you're at Michigan? You're doing what you're doing. You're playing at this level. But if somebody wants to throw him a bone at OC, that I could see. So I would be interesting to see how much he actually did as part of the offensive coordinating duties, and if other teams have recognized that and inquired about it and would want to talk to him, because I think he's like our age. I think he's like 36, 37. I think he's a rising star in the profession as well. So definitely want to hang on to those two dudes, Mike McDonald and Sharon Moore. Last for me, are you good? I'm good. I've run out of questions. I've run out of even the last question I made up. All right, so here's my last one, and we did this one earlier this year, and now I'm curious as to the number you would slap on it. We kind of talked about this earlier.
All right.
With your rankings question. What is your approval rating for Mr. James Joseph Harbaugh? Approval rating for Jim Harbaugh right now today, December 6th.
100%.
Whoa!
So that's HUNNIT, 100% approval rate. How could he not be? What's there to be upset about? This is why we're all just partying. I'm having a good time.
Not a bad argument.
I'm enjoying the holiday season. We're making travel plans, and Jim Harbaugh is the driving reason as to why all of this fun and happiness is happening. So for me and my money, it's got to be 100%. And if anybody's less, I'd like to hear the argument, but I've certainly got nothing to complain about as of today.
Man, listen, I'm not pounding the table. I'm not going to argue aggressively with you. I'm trying to think. Like, so you don't think there's anything he can do better? I guess that would be.
I think there's obviously things he can do better and improve on. But when you talk about approval rating, that's asking the masses how they feel about the job he's done. And I would venture to say you would get back, if you're polling the folks in Ann Arbor. Now, if you go to Columbus and you add them into the pool, which I don't know why you would do that, you'll get a different result. But in terms of how this fan base feels about Jim Harbaugh, I mean, you've been one of his biggest critics. And at this point, I would venture to say that we're all pretty damn happy with Jim Harbaugh. So you might not be at 100, but 95% approval rate. Like, you got to be pretty damn happy.
That's where my number was, 95. And that's just because, I mean, he's not perfect, and I still think there are a couple things he could do a little bit better.
There you go. His media skills could be, but when he's, you know what though? I heard somebody say this. I think it was in one of our comments, and it resonated with me. He is simultaneously the best and worst interview in all of sports. And I truly believe, I love that because that is exactly who Jim Harbaugh is. You're always going to get, unless he's like super pissed off, he's going to give you some sort of goody, like little tidbit, little saying that he has. He's just I don't know. He's an interesting guy.
Talk about guys on the moon, or two if by land, one if by sea, or whatever the hell he did. He's all
war references. You never know what you're gonna get. You never know.
The third baseline, which was just savage and just so on point. I mean,
there you go. Like, see, that's the thing. Like, sometimes he feels like he's a bit aloof, and then he comes in and he's like just sharp, like cuts you like a knife. So I don't know, man. There's a method to his madness.
Yeah, Patton. That's what it was. Patton. George Patton got it done on the ground or whatever. Yeah, different dude, but. I would, I don't know. There's not a lot that I would say needs to be corrected at this very moment, but
cockles. I mean, half of our drops addicted to sex. Jim Harbaugh is the gift that keeps giving.
He really kind of
You
is.
addicted to sex? A sex addiction or something? Definitely warms the cockles of the heart.
You not love that?
Do I have any more? I think that's it. We could have a lot more. Well, Gene,
What do we need? Gene,
yelling at Gene Wojciechowski, making him
Jim.
feel like a tool. Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna ask you. We'll kind of wrap up with that, and then we'll start fading
Damn,
out.
dude, we're pushing an hour and a half.
I know. We
Wow.
really got into it. They won a Big Ten title. What do you want? That's what
They did.
Got a lot to go. Well, I got a lot to talk about right now. Let's actually fade it out, and we'll start just talking about this last question. Then we'll throw on the wrap up music and get out of here. What would you change? I mean, you gave him 100, and you said he's not perfect. But I'm literally struggling to come up with something that I would say is like actively needs to be much better when it comes to Jim Harbaugh as a head coach.
You know what I would change? The access given to the media. That's what I would change. Let it, hey, open up the spring game. Let us come observe some things. Let us see what's going on back there so we don't have to spend the whole damn offseason speculating on what's happening. Like, let us get a peek behind the curtain, and then that way we can give that information to the people who deserve it.
Very, very strong username here, Captain Banana Peel. The recruiting's not elite in this class. It's not. This 2022 class is not elite. Couple really, really good guys in there. Will Johnson, obviously a stud. Zeke Berry, I really like that pickup. Quarterback's a little weak. Running back, we'll see what CJ Stokes is all about. Receivers are going to be hard to bring in when they're only getting 2 or 3 catches a game. Look, man, 12-1 playoff. Those are the big ticket items. But yeah, recruiting's not elite right now, and we are just 9 days away from the early signing period, December 15th. And so you'll see what happens between now and then, but you do this for just a little bit longer. Yes. Dependent Fanatic. That is a great point. The timing of the early signing period is not ideal. If you had all the way till February where kids were still going to be trying to figure things out and finding out where they want to go and giving teams one more shot, Michigan would benefit greatly from that, but they don't have that this year. A lot of 70-80% of kids now sign on that Wednesday in December, and so we'll see. Let's looking like.
Let's finish on Cody's comment. Cody's been hammering this, and I see people are trying to get Cody. They're trying to get his question up there. It's about the realignment. I think that might be a good. We can touch on that briefly as we're kind of petering out here towards the end.
Okay. Should there be conference realignment? That's the basic question.
I think everybody would pretty much be in agreement that the Big Ten needs to do something. They've got to figure out something. I mean, the East is it's stacked. It's been stacked for a long time. And look at the records. Look at the Big Ten championship result. Look at just look at how things have played out over the years. I think it's painfully obvious. It's painfully obvious that there needs to be some. Well, it wasn't the West at the time. It was the leaders and legends So they got to do something. And, but I think if you're a Michigan fan, Ohio State's always going to be part of the equation. Michigan State's probably always going to be part of the equation. And so I don't think you're going to see a huge, huge shift in Michigan's favor, even if there is realignment.
Yeah, you could just get rid of the divisions. Take the best 2, let them roll.
There you go. Which I would be fine with.
Might be a lot of Ohio State, Michigan rematches, but I mean, if those are the best 2, those are the best 2. Like, why wouldn't it be?
What it is.
So yeah, I wanted to put up a real quick thing. Who was it? Ron Thomas makes a really good point here. The transfer portal has changed recruiting because you can now go out and find a plug and play guy to fix a weakness like that. You don't have to hope that a true freshman might be ready or try to get a guy ready. You can watch a guy who has shown that he's ready, and it doesn't always transfer. I mean, not every guy who's successful at Kent State is going to be able to come to Michigan and be the same dude. Well, I mean, we saw it with Alan Bowman. That was a guy I thought might really have a chance to win the starting job, and he is a non-fat. Like, I don't even know why he's at Michigan. And based on what we thought about freshman JJ, Cade, who had never played before, and a guy who had made 19 starts and thrown for 5,000 or 6,000 yards, I thought he had a shot. And it
wild.
Never did, not even a little bit. And so, yeah, the transfer portal does make it interesting because now you can literally go out and shop and find guys that can plug a hole for you real quick. So yeah, we'll see. But that's really about it, man. I mean, like you said, 100. If you want to give him 100 approval, I'd say at 95. And I put Jim Harbaugh at number 1 in the Big Ten, dude. And that's not what I was saying even a month ago. You know, when they
Hard
lost
to be unhappy these days.
Michigan State, I'm thinking, here we go again.
That was when I asked you, and I think you had him maybe fourth or fifth. Like we had him middle of the road. I think I asked you who you try. Like we went through this list, and Harbaugh was like middle of the pack. So
dude, we had an even more specific question about if you were down by 4 and you had a minute and a half and you had to go down and get a touchdown on offense. We put him damn near at the bottom of the list.
Who you would trust, like in that coach in the Big Ten out of all 14?
Yeah,
you're down 4, 2 minutes left. You got to go down and score. Where would you put Harbaugh? What level of trust would you have him on the 4 team? We had him right around number 6, I think.
Oh,
he wasn't very high. He might have even been lower than that. But now it's like I look at him and I say, I'm probably riding with Harbaugh. He's got the damn thing working. So
he was lower than that by a lot, and it was because it was at that time when they were just. All they were getting was field goals in the red zone. They were not scoring any touchdowns.
Where is Jake Moody? Did he even was he even in Indy?
He's just in a hot tub with a cigar and a bathrobe on the sideline, just partying. Trots out there to kick it off through the end zone, goes back.
From the hot tub. He's literally kicking from the hot tub, just like wearing a sandal, a flip-flop.
Unbelievable, man. It's just so fun to be able to talk about this team like this. And I've said it a million times, dude. I've said it a million times. It's never been a vendetta. It's never been personal. I just always wanted Michigan to be exactly where they freaking are right now, and it's awesome that they are, and it just makes it a lot more fun to cover, dude. I mean, we used to reference it all the time. Like, think about how fun it was to cover basketball when they're winning the Big Ten and going to the Elite Eight, and you're dealing with Juwan, a happy Juwan. By the way, an unhappy Juwan, not a whole lot more fun to be around than an unhappy Juwan. That's not a shocker, right? Yeah. Oh my God, Ron Thomas, you are absolutely right. We just said Jake Moody's name like 4 times and never put out Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, dude. I'm sorry.
Well, we were rocking Sledgehammer in downtown Indy. I can tell you that. People could
windows
hear it
down
from the vehicle.
Yes. Windows down, Sledgehammer playing. Dude, we had Richard Marks. We had Brian
Henley.
We had Donnie Hens. We had Michael McDonald,
the bounty hunter. We had Sheets, Daryl Sheets,
Storage
Awards.
Your boy from Alien Hunters or whatever the hell that show's called.
Giorgio. If you're an Ancient Aliens fans out there, hit me up. We'll talk about it. Brandon doesn't get into that sort of thing, but
come back on Wednesday.
They're out there.
Chris have an idea brewing. It's a brand. It's a lifestyle. It comes directly from a story in Indy. We're going to discuss. We're going to find out exactly how much we want to go into it.
I don't know that I want them to know. We'll talk about it.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to get a feel. We're going to get a vibe from the people. Chris, real quick, we're going to start the music over again to take us out of here because we're going to run out of time. But I want you to address this. I'm going to give you the floor as we leave.
Oh, boy.
Your tattoo.
Yeah, I mean, the tattoo is happening. I showed Brandon the, I think the initial design or the direction of where I'm going. It's going to happen. I got to get the schedule. My wife, I already have a gift card for a tattoo, but they've since gone out of business. So I'm not dragging my feet. I'm trying to coordinate where it's going to happen, but it is going to happen with it. It'll be there before we go down to Miami. That I will guarantee.
Chris has a lot going on. They're remodeling the house. He's got a couple ankle biters.
You guys are buying like hundreds of hats, by the way. Winged helmet people, they're like flooding me with hat orders, which is I mean, you guys are just absolutely. You are keeping me keeping us very, very busy. I appreciate all of it.
There you go.
But I will be getting inked. Man,
bring it back on Wednesday. I'm going to try pretty hard to talk Chris into letting this story just flow freely.
There needs to be some limitations.
We'll find out. But we'll be back on Wednesday night at 7:00. As always, man, thanks to the loyal listeners. We hope you guys enjoyed it because we certainly did. And again, anybody, private jet, flight vouchers, free tickets,
limo,
Delta, whatever. Let us know. Let your boy know. We're trying to get to Miami. We're going to get to Miami.
We'll be there.
We'll be there with bells on. Everybody, take it easy. We'll see you on Wednesday.